Want to show your support for your Philly teams? Check out phillygoat.com. They have all of your needs covered, whether it's Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, Phillies, Union, Philly boxing, Philly culture, or Philly pride. There's something for you. Tees, hoodies, hats, any color you want, any size you want, including kids. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Be sure it has the authentic goat on the sleeve, and use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast that takes a trip down Philly sports memory lane. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to episode number 55. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to say I apologize if you hear a nail gun or a lawnmower in the background or a leaf blower. Got a house being built over here, and then somewhere along the street back here, someone is mowing their grass. So I do apologize. It's just too nice to not have the windows open, though. And there's no kids, really. So I'm just going with it. They're still in school. But welcome to Back to the Future, episode 55. And if you are new here, Back to the Future is our podcast where we take a deeper dive into Philly sports, whether it's teams, eras, institutions, buildings, you name it. We take a deeper dive in and spend anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes talking about it. We have interviews and things like that. I also have a This Day in Philly Sports History. If you're not listening to that every day, we take a look at just that. This is what happened in Philly sports history, and then take a look at the current state of the Philadelphia sports landscape, and then do something fun that this month we happen to be doing Who Wore It Best. So this is episode 55, which is the Brandon Graham episode, or Dikembe Mutombo, depending on which side of the tracks you fall on. But I think most people voted for BG. So just little fun things like that. A lot of good things on the horizon for October. So please like and subscribe so you're in the loop. I have some big news coming. I'm shooting for October 1st. There's some still glitches and things I need to work out, as well as it's the Eagles game day, so it might not be the best day to roll it out, but I'm shooting for Sunday, which is October 1st, which I think is October 1st. Yeah, Sunday, October 1st is what I'm shooting for. So fingers crossed that things work out. But the best way, and I will say after I just saw me bending down and turning around the lighting, it's not a new light yet. I'm working on a new light though too, but something big on the horizon for Sunday, fingers crossed. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, the best way to stay in the loop is like and subscribe. Be sure to check out last week's episode. I was very intrigued by Barry Ashby's story and it was motivating and it was inspirational and really just a good story on how hard work pays off and keeping your eyes on your dreams and working hard toward it. So it's pretty clean, I think, for the most part. So if you want, be sure to share it with your kids as well. It's good, like I said, a good story on how just the importance of hard work and really working toward what you want and not giving up and just going for it. So be sure to check that out and any of the other archives we have too. Before we get into episode number 55, be sure to check out my buddies over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. That's basically an around the horn style look at the NFC East. There's representatives from each team. Lots of good banter, lots of good trash talking. So be sure to check that out. It's a lot of fun. I'm anxious to see what this week's going to look like, being that the Eagles were the only team that won and the only undefeated team. So check them out, the Clashing Conferences podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. All right, so I mentioned taking a deep dive into things, and this week was, or I guess technically, I don't even remember. Here I go looking at the calendar, messing up the thing again. Technically, it was last week. Last Friday night, the Phillies inducted Scott Rolen into their Wall of Fame. And there's just a lot I had to say about it, and I figured I needed more than just the 15 minutes or so I usually allot for this damn Philly sports history. But it brought up two main concerns, and I'll get into both of them here. But the first is, does Scott Rolen need to be in the Phillies Wall of Fame? And I mean, that in one aspect is one separate question. And then to me, as I started looking at who's in and sort of the parameters laid out and what the Phillies do with that, is it becoming too watered down? And that in and of itself is a separate issue. But as I started to get into it, it made me start thinking that maybe the two are related. And I think there is a reason for that. So let's get into it. It's episode 55, the Brandon Graham episode, Scott Rolen and the Phillies Wall of Fame. So first, a little history. As you know, I like to do things like this. It's the history teacher in me that always comes out. But the Phillies Wall of Fame was started in 1978, and its original goal was basically to induct the greatest players in the Phillies and Philadelphia A's history as a way to keep their memory and things alive. Key word there to me being greatest. They over the years they did make some exceptions for contributors, so managers, coaches, GMs, executives, announcers, those types of folks have been in. They expand it from just the players. Well, not a bad idea that every year they inducted one Philly and one A. And at that point, the A's were, I think, from the early 1900s. They had about a 54-year history. I think they left in 1954. So it was like a 54-year history in Philly. And then the Phillies were in 1883. So they had almost 100 years. So over the course of 100 years, you're going to get some good players. So they were able to really pick and choose some of the best players for both teams. Then in 2003, let me take a step back. The only exception to that was 1983 when the Phillies picked their centennial team. So all 9 of those guys, I guess 10 if they put it, I forget whether they put a relief pitcher in or not, which I think they did. But so that team, the centennial team, was inducted. So they were inducted, I guess, sort of individually as the centennial team. So you could have had 2 guys in there. We'll get more into that later. But once Citizens Bank Park opened in 2003, they stopped doing the A's and donated all of that stuff, which rightfully so. At that point, like, you were playing at the Vet. Now you have a baseball-only stadium. Focus on your team. And the A's moved to Kansas City, then to Oakland, so they have a different history. So I was okay with that. 1 Philly, 1 A, up until opening in Citizens Bank Park, and then from there, it was only Phillies. And they took all the A's players, put them on a plaque, and there's the Connie Mack statue out on I think it's the kind of left field, third base sort of gate there coming in. But so that way they have everything to do with the A's in one spot. I'll get it out. But they continued to do one a year, which, again, I get, but after a while, it's like, okay, like some of the names, you go from like a Mike Schmidt, a Steve Carlton, or a Chuck Klein, Grover Cleveland Alexander. Then you start getting some, and we'll get more into some of them in a minute. And then in 2018, they inducted 2, and I believe part of this was due to Roy Halladay passing. But they put in Roy Halladay and Pat Gillick, and I don't know. That started to be where they lost. Excuse me. Like, okay, you're putting 2 in now, and I could see if you're a team with like a rich history when you're like the Yankees or the Dodgers, where you're winning championships, or even the Cardinals for that matter. But 1 a year I'm okay with, but 2, now it's like, okay, you're starting to eat up a lot of these players, and to me it starts getting watered down. And I mean, and this is no disrespect against any of these guys I'm about to mention, because a lot of them played important roles. But then, like Kruk, okay, I can see Kruk. He's a fan favorite. He played a big role and he was instrumental during that run. And even other than 93, he had some good years here and there. He was an all-star, played a long time here. I get. Obviously, you got guys like Dalton that deserve to be in. You have even Mike Lieberthal to a certain point. Like I get, like he was here for a long time. He was a very good catcher. He wasn't a power hitting catcher, but he was kind of the victim to Mike Piazza was also the best catcher in the National League at the time, who was a Hall of Famer. Guys like Bob Boone, who played an important role. Manny Trio. Again, I'm okay with that. But some of these guys then, Juan Samuel is in the Phillies Wall of Fame. Is he one of the greatest Phillies ever? I mean, I guess you could debate it. But only played 7 years in the Phillies. And of the 7 years, he led the National League in strikeouts 4 times and Major League Baseball once. I think he did lead the league in triples and doubles a couple times. He was a 2-time All-Star. But in Major League Baseball, every team gets an all-star. So he was 2 years, he was the best player on one of the worst teams. So is that Hall of Fame worthy? I mean, again, I think this to me is Juan Samuel is where you start losing it. And then I started looking back at some of the other guys. Bake McBride. I know there's a lot of guys who like Bake McBride. He was a world champion in 1980, and he had a great year that year. But is he Wall of Fame worthy? Or is it just, oh shit, we need to put somebody in. Who can we put in? Everybody like Bake McBride? Good. Ron Reed this year. Or I think it was this year. Okay. Like, again, same thing. Like, he was an okay relief pitcher who was on a World Series team. Tony Taylor. And again, no disrespect to these guys. Tony Taylor played here 15 years. And it was during the 60s when the Phillies were terrible with the exception of 1964. He only hit .261. Like, are you rewarding him for being, like, longevity? Or do you want it to be the Wall of Fame? Is it the Wall of Very Good? Is it the Wall of we just need to honor players? And if that's the case, that's fine. But don't call it the Wall of Fame. Don't make it seem like these are the best of the best, because Juan Samuel, Bake McBride, Ron Reed, and yes, I know there's people out there who probably love those teams that'll make the argument. I feel like if you have to make the argument that hard, it's kind of like, I mean, would Jason Worth be a Wall of Fame worthy player? He only played like 3 or 4 years here, and then played most of his career elsewhere because he won the World Series and wore the incredible Hawk hand during the parade. Does that make him Hall of Fame worthy or Wall of Fame worthy? I don't think so. I think if you're going to do it, it needs to be the elite. And it's nothing personal on those guys, because I could break down even more guys I saw, but I stopped it there. With those 4 guys, are 4 that stuck out to me. Juan Samuel, though, like, are we going to induct Steve Jeltz next because there was nobody else better? Does Kevin Stocker belong on the Wall of Fame because he was on the 93 Phillies? Dave Hollins. Does Dave Hollins, who had like 2 or 3 good years in Philly, does he belong on the Wall of Fame? Mariano Duncan? Like, you can make the argument because they were fan favorites and did certain things, but I just think you're like, there's Eric Bruntlett. Eric Bruntlett had a couple of big plays in the World Series, both in the field as well as at the plate. Does that mean he's Wall of Fame worthy? Do you see what I'm saying here? I think 1 a year was a push for me. And I don't even think you should put 1 in every year. You should only put 1 in if it makes sense. But 2, and even this year now they did 3. To me, that's a little much. Again, nothing personal, but come on. Now that brings me to Scott Rolen. And I could give you an argument for and against him being in the Phillies Wall of Fame. But let's take a look at the numbers. 7 years in Philly. He hit 282, 150 homers, 550 RBI, one All-Star game, the Rookie of the Year, and 4 Gold Gloves. Not bad. I mean, I put those numbers over I would put him in over Bake McBride, Juan Samuel, and Tony Taylor. Like I easily put him in over those guys. Rod Reed. But he went to more All-Star games and had overall way more success, including a World Series, more All-Star games, more Gold Gloves, almost just as many homers, just as good of an average outside of Philly than he did in Philly. And that's just the numbers. To me, he was soft. He doesn't, and I know this doesn't matter and it should not matter, but he's not like a typical Philly guy. Like he did not kind of endear himself at all to the fans, did not endear himself to the city, did not endear himself to the team. I mean, the fans, like he didn't do anything to, and we're very easy people. As much as everybody says Philly is tough fans, like it's very easy. Play hard, like, and if you mess up, own it. Like, that's it. Like that's all you have to do. Like, look at Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper goes over the top to make connections, and again, you have Bryce Harper here, but a guy like Jalen Hurts doesn't necessarily go out of his way to make fanfare with the fans. But you know what he does? Goes out and he plays hard. A guy like Jason Kelce, again, goes over the top. But a guy like Fletcher Cox, we like him. Why? Because he goes out and just plays hard. And if he messes up, they mess up. And they own it. Brandon Graham. So Rolen does not fit that bill. And to me, he's kind of soft. He fought with Bo all the time. He felt the ownership wasn't trying to do enough to win. Called them a small market club. Now, I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's wrong at all. But how he handled it was kind of punk-like. Look at what Harper did. Harper literally has gone to bat for JT Realmuto to get them to re-sign him. He's gone to bat for Trey Turner, for Kyle Schwarber. He's gone to bat for these guys. That's what you do. It's the exact same thing Donovan McNabb screwed up with. Donovan McNabb, all he had to do was go to bat for his guy. Whether or not that's what he wanted, whether or not the ownership group was the general manager, whoever was going to re-sign T.O., it didn't matter. That's all you have to say. If the ownership doesn't sign JT Realmuto, do you think they're going to hate Bryce Harper for it? No. If they don't sign Trey Turner, are they going to blame and hate Bryce Harper? No. Even if it's all a scam and you don't believe it, do it. Don't go to the media and say, I need the ownership to do stuff. Go out there and give ideas. Like he just said they're not spending money. Who do you want them to spend money on? Or no, you'd rather just cry to the media about it. And finally, for Scott Rolen, to me, he's a borderline Hall of Famer anyway. Yes, he got inducted, but he's borderline. His first year of eligibility, he had 10% of the vote. 10%. And then he only got in with 76, so you have to get 75. So he barely got in. And truthfully, I would say he benefited the most of anybody of these guys that are being labeled the steroid guys and the bias against him. So whether like Bonds should be in my opinion, Roger Clemens should be in. A lot of those guys that aren't in because of steroids, that's a whole nother topic. But guys like Bonds and Clemens were great Hall of Fame players before steroids. So the reason that I feel Scott Rolen got in is because he has that clean image and nobody's like, they have to vote for somebody. And again, it kind of goes back to the whole Phillies Wall of Fame. If nobody gets 75% of the vote, I don't think that Major League Baseball puts anybody in. Simple as that. They have standards. They don't put Juan Samuel in the Wall of Fame because, well, we got to put somebody in and he had 70% of the vote. No, like there's specific criteria you have to hit. And Scott Rolen didn't do it. Plus, he wanted out. He didn't want to be here. He flat out said, I don't want to be here. He had more success somewhere else. Ultimately, the Phillies had better success without him. So, why even bother? Why? because you have to put somebody in. They already had somebody in because they feel bad, because I don't know, they have to hit a quota. And I mean, truthfully, the whole thing was a bunch of bullshit because he couldn't even make the original induction date because of personal scheduling conflicts. Get the fuck out of here. Like, seriously? Personal scheduling conflicts. Stop it. Like, he made a mockery of it, and truthfully, I feel like it is a mockery. The wall of very good, not the wall of fame, or maybe that's it. The wall of fame because you're famous. Everybody knows who Juan Samuel is. Everybody knows Bake McBride from the 80 team because of the afro. Is that what you're just famous people are now getting in? Scott Rolen, because everybody knows we fought with him. Just because he got put in the Hall of Fame doesn't mean we need to celebrate him. He didn't want no parts of us. Why are we going after him? Somebody explain it to me. Explain it. And, I mean, I guess you can make the argument, what if he did stay? What if he did go about it the right way? Or what if he didn't force the trade, signed the big contract extension, and then was able to see, like, on the horizon with the opening of Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies would have started being able to spend money because they would have had it. I mean, ultimately, I think he would have been an upgrade over Pedro Feliz and Abraham Nunez. Maybe, and if he'd have stayed, maybe they wouldn't have gone after Placido Polanco in 09 or 10, whenever year they went. I guess it was 10 because Feliz was here in 09. Maybe he doesn't come back. Like, maybe they have Rolen. And I mean, they could have had an infield of Rolen, Rollins, Utley, and Howard, which is a pretty damn good infield. Could they have afforded it? Would there have been money for a guy like Shane Victorino or Jason Worth? Because part of the reason why Jason Worth left is because they couldn't afford him. I don't know. Would it have screwed up the chemistry because Rolen was not necessarily a good locker room presence. So ultimately, it's better for the Phillies that the man left. So let's put him in the Wall of Fame. I mean, ultimately, it worked well for everyone in the end. But why are we celebrating this man? Because we have to put somebody in and it looks bad because this guy's a Hall of Fame and he played most of his career. He wanted no parts of wearing a Phillies hat. He made it clear he wanted to wear a St. Louis Cardinals hat on his Hall of Fame plaque. So we're going to celebrate him in the Wall of Fame? Come on now. So what is the solution? I'm very much like this with my team at work. Like, that's fine. Come, complain about things. Let me know how you feel. But be solution-oriented and let me know how we can fix this. Well, I practice what I preach. Here's how you fix this situation. First of all, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle now. Give a shout-out to one of my coworkers, Mike, for this one. Lots of things have been going on at work, and he's been preaching and screaming this from the rafters. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You already let Juan Samuel in. You already let Bake McBride in. Ron Reed is in. Tony Taylor is in. But I think moving forward, you can set parameters. And I'm not sure what they do now specifically. I know that there's like a 3-year window that you have to be retired, but I don't know if you have to play for a certain amount of years, be involved with a certain amount of time in Philly or whatever it is. But ultimately, you need to set up parameters somehow, some way to make sure guys like Juan Samuel, and they have to be like greatness goals, not just Tony Taylor played here 15 years. He was the team was terrible. He was the best player on a shitty team. So let's put him in the Wall of Fame. No, like they have to be like gold standards. Jeffrey Lurie talks all the time about the Eagles being the gold standard of the NFL. You got to sit that, like, even if you don't believe it. I think for years Jeff Lurie probably didn't believe that. He was trying to be the gold standard, but eventually I think they are now the gold standard. Make this the gold standard, the Wall of Fame. And you know what? Be open about it. We have a shitty history. We've made the playoffs 16 times in 100 and whatever amount of years. That's not good. So there should not be a large number of people in the Wall of Fame. Just because a team won a championship doesn't mean every single bench player on that team. Should Matt Stairs be in the Wall of Fame because he hit the pinch hit home run? Like, those are the things you need to think about. So go back to the original goal, greatest players. Make it one per year. If you want to make sure you do it once a year, I think you ought to just, if you don't have anybody to put in, leave it at that. But only one. That's it. One player per year, one manager, whatever. That to me makes it more meaningful, and then it keeps it more prestigious. We talked a few weeks ago to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, Ken Avalon, and he said that they have, you see the list of the people they have in from Philadelphia that are Hall of Famers for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. They have a list twice that amount of guys that have not, and ladies who have not been inducted yet. Keep it prestigious. You don't open the floodgates because, like I said, I really do like this saying. Feel free to steal. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Sometimes you hear you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but either way, start now. Make it more prestigious. Make a guy like Juan Samuel look better than what he really was. This one's going to be a controversial one, but take the politics out of it. Base it solely on their play on the field, period. And I know there are some, and this has nothing to do with the Philadelphia or the National Baseball Hall of Fame. It's another topic for another day. Pete Rose in the Phillies Hall of Fame. Lenny Dykstra in the Phillies Hall of Fame. You like Curt Schilling, who went on record with anti-Muslim, anti-transgender, openly supported the January 6th attack on the Capitol. He's in. You didn't remove him. Why? Because he was a good player. Lenny Dykstra should be in. Pete Rose should be in. Pete Rose didn't even gamble on the Phillies. It was the Reds while he was a manager. He admitted to that. You got to let him in. Take the political stuff out of it. It should be based solely on what they do on the field. Stop being higher and holier than thou. Let the people in based on what they did in the field. Lenny Dykstra is a nut job today. Doesn't take away what he did on the field while he was in the Phillies organization. Because he was here for way more time than a lot of the guys that are in. And you're telling me Juan Samuel had a better Phillies career than Lenny Dykstra? Seriously. Juan Samuel, according to the Phillies Wall of Fame, had a better Phillies career than Lenny fucking Dykstra. Stop it. And honestly, if you dig deep enough into any of us, any of you listening, myself included, everybody's going to have a skeleton or two in our closet. Nobody's perfect. It's what you do when you realize you made a mistake. Do you learn from it? Do you not? And either way, Curt Schilling, you think he was, you tell me he wasn't anti-Muslim or anti-transgender or anti-whatever when he played for the Phillies and was leading us in the 93 season to the World Series? No, he was like that. And people, sure, they knew that. Like somebody like Schilling, who is as outspoken as he is not going to hide that when he's a player. You just didn't have social media and things like that. So again, keep politics out of it. Everybody has a skeleton or two in their closet. I don't care who you are. And if you don't have a skeleton in your closet, you're lying. You're absolutely lying. Some are more hidden than others. Some are bigger than others, but everybody has one. It has nothing to do with what Pete Rose and Lenny Dykstra did on the field. Let them in. Just like they did for the 1983 Centennial team, Phillies need to allow teams to be inducted. A la what the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame does. Let the division-winning teams, let the 2011 Phillies be inducted. They have the most wins ever. Sure, they didn't win anything because of it, but if you must hit that one per year quota, celebrate the teams. I mean, there's 16 right there that have made. Let the league championship series winners, like induct the 93 Phillies, induct last year's team at some point, induct the 2009 Phillies. Let the 64 team in. I mean, they had a very good year. It's a historical thing. I mean, if you're going to let Juan Samuel in, why not let the 1964 Phillies be inducted? They were far better than Juan Samuel. And again, by keeping the teams to the winning teams that made the playoffs, made the postseason, you still keeps it prestigious. And it gives you the option now for Alumni Weekend. They brought the 83 and the 93 Phillies team back. Do it in 2029. Do the 20th anniversary of that 2009 World Series team. Or wait until, what would it be, 2034 and do the 25th anniversary. However you want to do it, but it gives you those options. They need to have more fan input. Apparently, and I had to really dig hard to find this out, apparently fans are able to vote for the Phillies Wall of Fame. Apparently there's something on the Phillies website. Maybe I missed this, and I've been watching Phillies games for a long time. I don't ever remember seeing the option to click a link to vote for the thing. I mean, I can tell you when the Hatfield Dollar Dog Nights are. I can tell you when college night is. I can tell you when back to school night is. I can tell you when all the different ethnicity groups Heritage Day are. Couldn't tell you when it's time to vote for the Phillies Wall of Fame. I know when it's time to vote for the All-Star. I know when the next Phillies homestand is going to be and what the giveaway is going to be. Bucket Hat Day. Can tell you when that's going to be. Can't tell you when. They do a good job with marketing things, but I can't tell you when it's time to vote for the Phillies Wall of Fame. And and maybe if somebody from the Phillies is listening, let me know. I think that's done purposely because real fans know, Juan Samuel does not belong in the Wall of Fame. And I liked Juan Samuel as I was a kid. I don't know. And I still don't know how they're even nominated for the Wall of Fame. We talked to Ken for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, and he said that fans can submit nominations, this, that. He said it's all very clear on their website. How do you get nominated for the Phillies Wall of Fame? Play 15 years like Tony Taylor? Have a good year, the year that the Phillies win the World Series like Bake McBride? Tell me. That's how you make this better. And again, there's no turning back with some of those other things. But, I mean, really, I think you go back to making it about the great players. One per year if you have to do it. I'm fine with not having one every year. It's still doing Alumni Day, but if you don't induct somebody into the Wall of Fame, that's okay. Maybe make it a year to celebrate somebody that's already in. I don't know. But and if you have to do it, one per year. Keep it meaningful. Keep it prestigious. Take the politics out. What Pete Rose and Lenny Dykstra do off the field have no impact on what they did while they were in Philadelphia as players. Just like Curt Schilling, what he does didn't stop you from putting him in. Why would it stop you from putting the other two in? Allow for whole teams to be inducted. Keeps it prestigious. And give the fans more input. Like I said, I mean, we know everything that's going on. Everything. We know the Fanatic's birthday. We know when to get the Mother's Day game. The beach towel. Mini Bat Day. We know all that. Tell us when it's time to vote. Let the fans have a say. That way, you keep guys like Juan Samuel, who were good, an okay player, not great. He was not a great player. He had great moments. All right, finally, omissions. I mean, the fact that Juan Samuel's in and got guys like Bake McBride and Ron Reed and Tony Taylor going in, and there's a lot of players. I already mentioned Dykstra and Pete Rose who are not in. Now, I know with Pete Rose it's a little bit different because there was some other allegations going on. But again, I think that was all after. I don't know. More on that later. But the whole, like the 2008 Phillies, induct them as a team unless they're planning on waiting for the 20th or the 25th year. But Ryan Howard's met the 3-year requirement. Howard should have been in. And all these guys should be in over Scott Rolen anyway. Jimmy Rollins, are they waiting for him to be inducted possibly into the real Hall of Fame? Are they going to retire his number? You never know. Chase Utley, Chooch is going into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame this year. Shane Victorino. They all of those guys should have been in over any of those guys I named. And truthfully, I put Jason Worth in before Juan Samuel and even Scott Rolen. At least Jason Worth wanted to be here. Jason Worth wanted to stay here. The Phillies just didn't pay him the money. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay here. And again, just because you play a lot of mediocre years does not mean you're the best and should be in the Wall of Fame. Von Hayes isn't. Von Hayes, I would put in over Juan Samuel. But again, mediocrity and mediocre years does not mean just because you played 20 years. Does that means what? Okay, 20. Yes, that's some longevity there. But if you play 20 years and put up shitty numbers, it doesn't make you a Hall of Famer. So, Pete Rose, Lenny Dykstra should be in. Steve Bedrosian, one of 4 Phillies pitchers to win the Cy Young Award. He's not in. You're going to tell me a Cy Young Award winner is not in over Juan Samuel? It's not in over Tony Taylor? Cliff Lee, where does he fall in? He played a few years here, had some good years, didn't win anything. I still think he should be in over Scott Rolen or Juan Samuel. Maybe even Tony Taylor. Definitely over Ron Reed. The only reason I give Bake McBride a slight edge over him is because Bake McBride had a good year the year they won the World Series. But again, I don't necessarily think that doesn't belong in the Wall of Fame. So again, you tell me. Maybe I'm crazy. Am I sitting here going on a rant, sounding like the old man yelling at the cloud right now? If so, let me know. I really wish I could break some of the news I have coming because this would be the perfect podcast to do it. But again, should I get over my Rolen hate? Should Scott Rolen have been inducted into Hall of Fame? Am I being a putz and just hanging on to something? Am I crazy? Should there be no way in hell that Pete Rose and Lenny Dykstra are in the Phillies Wall of Fame? Let me know. This is one of those debates that I started this podcast for. Is the Phillies Wall of Fame fine the way it is? Maybe it doesn't need changing. Maybe you're okay. And I know it sounds terrible, but maybe you're okay celebrating guys like Juan Samuel and Ron Reed and Bake McBride and who's Tony Taylor. Maybe you're okay with that. And if you are, then I am crazy. Let me know. Leave a comment. Depending on when you're listening to this is why you need to be sure to like and subscribe, because there is a possibility you could weigh in on this next week, and there might be a new way for you to weigh in on things. So hold tight, but let me know. Am I crazy? I could be. I've been called worse. I've gotten way more heated over way less. So let me know. Should the Wall of Fame be revamped? Is it fine the way it is? Should Lenny Dykstra and Pete Rose be in? Am I crazy? What's going on right here? Aren't we all a little crazy, though? All right, be sure to listen to This Day in Philly Sports History every day. In the month of October, we're going to be focusing on this year's induction class as well as their 20 for 20. And then we're going to take a look to fill in some of the off days. We're going to take a look at some of the 5 guys that could be in future inductees into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. If you want more information on the Philly Sports Hall of Fame, go to their main site at phillyhall.org. That'll give you a list of everybody that has been inducted. And I will tell you this, they have way more higher standards than what the Phillies Wall of Fame does. If you want more information on the 2023 induction class or to get ticket information for the ceremony itself, go to philadelphiasportshalloffame.org. I will be in attendance for barring anything crazy, I will be in attendance for the ceremony this year, knock on wood. Again, you never know what could happen, but I'm shooting to go. So be sure to go to either site, and I'll put both of them in the description for information on tickets as well as how you can help the Hall of Fame. Listen to This Day in Philly Sports History every day. Like and subscribe. Back to the Future. We have a lot of good things coming up in the next few weeks. Lots of topics that are guaranteed to spark some debate. Have a big announcement coming soon, so hang tight for that. Be sure to follow me on social media, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Jimbo underscore Mont, Instagram, Philly Jimbo. Let me know what you think. The Phillies Wall of Fame, I've been holding that in. It feels good. Very therapeutic to get that out. But am I nuts? Am I crazy? Let me know. You know how to find me. Go have yourselves a week. This has been Back to the Future. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, go Birds. The Clashing Conferences podcast is a football conference-specific podcast that brings together the everyday passion of real fans and their not-so-friendly friends for the purpose of real-life football entertainment. Aggressive but friendly competitiveness is the name of the game as this group of NFC East fans jabs and banters each other trying to prove their pointless points. With an internal competition within for weekly and end-of-the-season bragging rights, watch as this group will still boast and brag even when their teams fail to bring home the W. New episodes drop on Thursday, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.